Heads up, this is going to be a long lesson with a lot of information, so come back and watch the video more than once if you need to. Here we go. It's time to take out the pen and paper and create a plan of action. You'll be creating a plan to gradually expose your dog to a scary thing, progressing over time and many sessions until he's no longer afraid of it. Choose your stimulus. You may have more than one scary thing that you want to work on with your dog. As you prepare to dive into this next assignment, think about which scary thing you feel might be the easiest one to address. This is the stimulus that you'll use to create your first plan. Easy might be defined this way. Maybe your dog's negative response isn't as strong to this particular scary thing as it is for some of the other scary things that you may want to work on. Or maybe it's easier for you to control this particular stimulus. Or maybe you feel that the steps to address this particular stimulus will be simpler than for the others. So based on this, do you know which one of the scary things would be the easiest to tackle? Great. You've chosen a stimulus to start working on. Now, on to the next step. Organize your thoughts. Before actually beginning to work on the issue, you need a plan, a detailed plan with clear steps and instructions for yourself. A plan is like a recipe. There are elements of a plan, just like certain ingredients in a recipe, that are crucial and that must be present. And then there are elements that can be adjusted and modified as needed. Sometimes when working with a recipe, you might decide to switch an ingredient or adjust the oven temperature or the cooking time based on the altitude where you live, and that's okay. Any plan, just like any recipe, can be adjusted to better suit your needs. Whatever you come up with as a DS plan now won't be set in stone, so don't worry. You're just organizing your thoughts, and you can adjust it at any time as you move through it. Next, your plan, your style. There are no rules. How you create your DS plan on paper is a bit of a personal thing. There's no template, no official layout style. You'll be writing out your plan and organizing the layout of your steps in whatever way makes sense to you, and this may be different for each of you. In other words, there's no right or wrong way to do it, so don't worry about that either. Personally, I approach creating a DS plan similarly to how I write articles or behavior reports. First, I create an outline, a big picture, and then I go back and I include the smaller details. And these details will tell me in what sequence I should be doing specific exercises. I'm laying out instructions for myself. Then, as I work on each element in the plan, I'll edit and I'll tweak and I'll make adjustments to it based on the feedback that I get from the dog that I'm working with. Maybe something I've written down in my plan isn't working as expected and I need to change course. Or better yet, maybe the dog is actually doing really well and one of my steps is no longer necessary. I can just skip it. Let's look at this sample case and how I might create a DS plan for it. Again, however you go about laying out your plan is fine, as long as the crucial elements are there. In other words, you are, number one, ensuring that your dog remains at or under threshold and does not experience a fearful response. Number two, ensuring that you're proceeding at your dog's speed and not skipping too quickly ahead to the next steps of your plan. You're always starting from the easiest point and not moving ahead until your dog is comfortable at that level. And number three, ensuring that you're including all the things related to the scary thing in your DS plan, such as environmental clues that your dog is associated with the scary thing. And this will make more sense as you hear the sample plan that I'm about to share with you. And I'll point out one of the environmental clues so you'll know it when you see it. Stay with me here. So here's my sample plan and how I'd go about building it. The issue. Pete the dog is afraid of the vacuum cleaner. He runs away from it and he hides when he can, but if it's too close or he's unable to escape, he'll bark and he'll lunge at it. My job now is to help Pete overcome his fear of the vacuum. Through desensitization, I'll be exposing him very gradually to the vacuum over many sessions until he's no longer afraid. And my initial skeleton outline of a DS plan to the vacuum might look like this. 1. Vacuum's not operating, there's no motor sound. The vacuum's not moving. Vacuum is visible, but at a distance. 2. Vacuum's not operating, there's no motor sound, but it's moving just a little. The vacuum is visible, but at a distance. 3. The vacuum is operating and there is sound, but it's not moving. 4. The vacuum is operating and it's moving. As you can see, this is a very simple outline with 0 details. My next step is to create sub-steps for each of the 4 points that I wrote in my outline. I'll begin working with Pete using these sub-steps, and I'll be gauging his response. And I'll also be using food, which is the counter-conditioning part of the process, but that's a given. I don't need to add that detail into my written plan. I won't move from one step to the next until I'm certain that Pete isn't afraid. My sub-steps might look like this. 1. Vacuum's not operating. There's no motor sound. Vacuum is not moving. Vacuum is visible, but at a distance. 1A. Sound of opening the closet door where the vacuum is stored. Now this would be one of the environmental clues that I mentioned earlier. Pete is afraid when that closet door is opened. It's an environmental clue that something's about to happen with that vacuum. 1B. Sight of the vacuum being pulled out of the closet. 1C. Sight of the vacuum just resting near the closet door, immobile and silent. And now step 2. Vacuum is not operating, there's no motor sound, but it's moving just a little. Vacuum is visible, but at a distance. 2A. Sight and sound of the stand-up vacuum being put into an angled operating position. That click sound that it makes. 2B. A gentle back and forth motion of the vacuum. 2C. Sight and sound of the electrical wire being unwound and plugged into the wall. 2D. Sight and sound of the extension hose being moved around. Step 3. Vacuum is operating, there is sound, but it's not moving. 3A. Vacuum is standing still and turned on very briefly. 3B. Vacuum is standing still and turned on for an extended period of time. 3C. The extension hose is engaged, using the palm of my hand to create a brief suction sound while the vacuum is operating. Step 4. Vacuum is operating and moving. 4A. Vacuum is turned on, there's sound, and it's gently moved back and forth. 4B. Vacuum is turned on with sound, and the extension hose is engaged. 4C. Vacuum is turned on with sound, and heavy-duty roller brush is engaged while moving back and forth. 4D. Vacuum is turned on and moved around the entire room. Now, let's break it down some more. You'll remember from our hand washing exercise that any task can be broken down to teeny tiny bites. The tinier, the better, always. And this is where you need to exercise great restraint and wanting to push forward because, ugh, this'll take forever. But like the egg and the spoon, if you rush, you'll need to go back to the starting gate to begin with a fresh, unbroken egg. If you move slowly and deliberately, you'll actually get to the finish line with an intact egg. Yeah. So with that in mind, let's break this thing down even further. I'll use task number 3 with the sub-steps A, B, and C from earlier as a sample. If you can remember, it already seemed fairly detailed, but as you follow along, you'll see how I might be able to help Pete progress through the steps even more smoothly. So step 3 had the vacuum operating with sound but not moving. So my new sub-steps would be 3A, introduction of the sound of an item that makes a similar noise but softer, like a hairdryer on the low setting, gradually increasing to the high setting. 3B, the sound of a small handheld vacuum, like a dustbuster. Need to find one that I can borrow. 3C, the actual vacuum is standing still and turned on for 2 seconds. 3D, the vacuum is standing still and turned on for 6 seconds. 3E, vacuum is standing still and turned on for 8 seconds. 3F, vacuum is standing still and turned on for only 4 seconds. I'm deliberately not always making it harder. Sometimes It's easier before it gets harder again. 3G. The extension hose is engaged, using the palm of my hand to create a brief suction sound while vacuum is operating, just once. 3H. The extension hose is engaged, using my hand to create brief suction sound while the vacuum is operating, now repeating the sound 3 times in a row. 3I. The extension hose is engaged, inserting a small piece of kibble into the hose to create a brief clunky sound. Okay, now it's your turn, and this is your assignment. You should have enough to get you started on creating your plan. And don't worry yet about how long or how often you should do each step in your plan, or when to decide to move forward to the next step in your plan. We'll address that soon. First, get started on thinking about all the steps and sub-steps and sub-sub-steps. Think about the scary thing that you'll be working on, and lay out the tasks in whatever way makes sense to you visually. I happen to use numbers and letters and indentations. Just do whatever you need for it to feel clear to you. There are no rules about that, at least not here in this course. The important thing here is not necessarily to create a beautiful presentation. Rather, I want to help steer your focus deeper into the DS process to improve your ability to spot the details that can help you and your dog move forward toward overcoming a fear. And when you're ready, start with an outline, see where it leads you.